Sold. All in. All right. We got 35 minutes here. We're going to go into the Big 12. We're going to break down this conference. Let's start with this. I want for each of you guys, I want what your most interesting storyline is heading into the season. Fanta, we'll go to you first.
In the Big 12?
In the Big 12, sir.
Yeah, in the Big 12, the most interesting storyline to me is TCU. TCU could have their best season in program history. Mike Miles is an absolute star, and I was happy to see that he was the Big 12 preseason player of the year and that he got recognized with that honor. Defensively, they're tough as nails. They've got real length guys that can affect the game, and they should have been a second weekend team in the NCAA tournament last year. They were right there and could have very well beaten Arizona, so we could be talking even more highly of them. But in this Big 12 picture, where Kansas and Baylor dominate the headlines, Texas looks very, very good. And I think Tyrese Hunter, if TCU weren't my top storyline, it would be how Hunter and Marcus Carr work together. I want to see if one of these off-brands could win the Big 12. It's no disrespect to TCU, but they're not what Kansas, Baylor, and Texas are from a brand standpoint.
Chris Beard, Paige and Chris Beard, John Fanta just called Texas, the University of Texas, an off-brand.
No, I didn't do that.
No, that's not what he said.
Just called him an off-brand.
No, he was talking about off-brand into Big 12 as far as Baylor.
He just called them an off-brand.
Oh,
Terrence, did I do that
wrong? I must have heard that wrong. Fanta, shame on you.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying.
You got the Kroger version right there. You got the generic version.
I know what you're saying, Fanta. That it is intriguing. TCU is intriguing. Those two lead guards, Mike Miles and Damian Ball.
Yes,
they turn it over a lot. That's kind of my only hang up. Are they going to be able to clean that up? Damian Ball, he sees it.
You got to shoot it, man.
Yeah, he sees it, but he really sees the floor. Here, my thing with him is this is going to be a crazy comparison. He reminds me a lot of Elfrid Payton coming out of college. Kind of the same, not as dominant. He plays at a bigger school, doesn't shoot it, but really passes it and really defends. He reminds me kind of same measurements, same wingspan, does a lot of the same things. He just can't shoot it. And their risk reward situation is an issue because they turn it over way too much.
They do.
Turnovers kill you in the Big 12. They kill you.
Yeah. I just think what Jamie Dixon has built there is not an easy job. And it seems like all the pieces are in place for them to have that historic year. I mean, last year they won an NCAA tournament game for the first time since 1987.
They probably should have beat Arizona.
You think about Chuck O'Bannon Jr., Emmanuel Miller, and Eddie Lampkin. Mm-hmm. They've got dudes, and they're fun to watch. They were extremely fun to watch the NCAA tournament last year. So we'll see if they do live up to the high expectations, being a top 15 preseason team, gentlemen, and in some polls, top 10.
Yeah, highest they've ever been ranked in the preseason. T.O., what's your most intriguing storyline?
Baylor being preseason picked to win the league, in my opinion, that's an intriguing one. But the one I'm going to go with is Kansas State and Jerome Tang. They had to fill a lot of roster spots, and not only Tang in his first season after being at Baylor since Scott Drews started at Baylor, which was 1974 or no 2000. What was it? 2004, 2003.
Yep,
I can't remember right now.
So did you say 1974?
Yeah, I was being.
I don't know if Scott Drew was alive in 1974. I'm going to tell him you said that.
Do it. He's been at Baylor for a long time. I think he would attest to that. No, but Tang getting his first head coaching job in the toughest league. Top to bottom in the country. I think that's going to be interesting to see. Keontae Johnson coming back. That's another major storyline after having a health scare at Florida State when he was playing for the Gators a couple of years ago. I'm really interested to see how this Kansas State team moves forward. And they've got one of the biggest sleepers, guys. I'm telling you.
Hold on, save it. I'll let you be the one. I'll let you be the one to hype him up. Save it for. There's a later section we're going to get to. Save it. I'll let you go all in on him because I know who you're talking about, and I'm with you. For me, the most interesting storyline is Kansas. Right? They have a roster that is good enough to at least make a run at going back to back, and doing that while you have all of this cloud of the NCAA stuff, and probably the ruling coming down at some point during the season, right? Of whatever punishment Bill Self is going to get for something that happened 27 years ago. I'm pretty sure that the violations that were committed by Kansas happened in Scott Drew's first season back in 1996 at Baylor, right? That's how long ago this whole deal was. But to me, I mean, look, you got the reigning national champions in this conference, and they bring back enough pieces that it should be very interesting to see if they can find a way to make it happen. I'm also Oklahoma State. They're eligible for the tournament again. Do the basketball gods look down kindly on them for everything that they dealt with last year? All right, let's do this. Kansas and Baylor, I think we all agree, are the two teams at the top of the conference, with Texas, TCU, maybe Texas Tech kind of nipping at their heels a little bit. But let's start with this. I want to know who you got as the favorite to win. Kansas, Baylor. You got to put all your chips in the middle. You got to take all your money and go to betrivers.com and bet it on one of those two teams. Who you got? T.O., let's go to you first.
Baylor. For me right now, Baylor, those three guards of Flagler, LJ Cryer, and Keontae George are going to be a bear, and that ball is going to move. All three can score. All three can shoot. That floor is going to be wide open. And they added Jalen Bridges, right, from West Virginia, who can step out and shoot it. Caleb Lohner is a nice player, a BYU transfer, 6'8", 6'9", can handle the ball, can play some five. And then I don't know what the deal is with Chamwa Chachua. If he's able to come back, he's still injured. It's going to be a while. But Baylor has all the pieces, and they have all the scoring and guys that complement their style of play. And you're going to look at Keontae George a lot like you looked at those guards a few years ago. They can start that chain of events. They can get past that first line of defense and get guys to collapse. That's when Baylor's good. Like, that's when the ball's getting sprayed out. That's whenever they're able to attack closeouts. This Baylor team's really good. Kansas did lose a lot, and I think there's going to be a bit of an adjustment period, not at home because they're going to win everything at home, but on the road, Kevin McCullough, some of these guys, like, who's going to be their go-to guy? Grady Dick is getting a lot of publicity because Bill Self or somebody over at Kansas called him the best shooter he thinks he's ever coached. I mean, like, there's a lot of optimism at Kansas. I do think they lost a lot, and I also think that Keontae George is just a special talent, guys.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about Kansas, I think Jalen Wilson's going to be their best player. I think he's going to be the best player in the conference. I would have him as a preseason player of the year.
Wow.
Just the rumblings coming out. The issue with him, he shot 26% from three last year. If you get that up to like 36, 37, which is probably what he is as a shooter. Yeah. And you look back at the success they had in the COVID year when they would play Jalen Wilson at the 5. I think we're going to see a lot of that this season. So it's going to be interesting. One other thing I would add, DeJuan Harris, Fanta, I think you're going to see the reins come off a little bit. I think that just talking with people around that program, listening to Bill Self chat, I think that he thinks there's more that DeJuan can do. And like last year, he was a game manager because you have a pro on this side, a pro on this side, and a monster at the 5, right? Well, now you're going to need him to kind of step up a little bit and be a little bit more of a playmaker. So who you got, Fanta? I got Kansas winning the league. I love Baylor. I got Kansas.
Well, I side with T.O., and I go with Baylor for the reasons he just listed. In addition, Jalen Bridges, the fact that they were able to bring him in on top of everything they have back makes them, to me, the Big 12 favorite. But to spice it up a little bit, I'll give you reasons why Kansas could win the Big 12. Number one, versatility. Kansas should be switchable defensively. They really honed in on bringing in versatile players, and that starts with Kevin McCullough. McCullough can guard pretty much any position. He's a 6'6" wing, guys, who just does a little bit of everything and showed it in the NCAA tournament last year. He affects the game in so many ways. To me, he's the perfect Bill Self off-season acquisition because I think he just fits right in. They know him well. He knows them well. Intra-conference transfer that makes a lot of sense. It's Texas Tech's loss, but it's Kansas's game. Mm-hmm. Grady Dick, the fact is, like, for me with Kansas, I don't think that Grady Dick and MJ Rice are going to have problems being able to contribute. Kansas, to me, comes down to some of the other returning players who did not get a ton of opportunities last year or got hurt. And so as a result, rotation gets shortened, and we don't have a huge sample size of these guys performing at a high level. There's a lot of buzz around Joseph Yesufu. Is he going to be able to take a leap in his second year with the program? Because last year he was a non-factor. What happens with Bobby Pettiford? I've heard that the injuries are still affecting him, but I know that if he ever gets on the floor, that he could impact Kansas in a big way. I know how high T.O. is on him.
I'll say this real quick about Pettiford. The breakout's going to be next season is my guess, because the injury limited his ability to do any kind of work through the summer. So like he hasn't had that chance to work out and develop and improve. So the talent's there. I think the breakout's coming next season. The
last thing I'll say on Kansas is when you're in a position that they're in, where you go from David McCormick, and when you're systematically known for having when you have your best teams, you've got great play at the 5. Now you've got this situation where you've got Zach Clemens, you've got Ernest Shude Jr., and you've got Zuby Ejiofor, and then the D2 transfer, Cam Martin. The fact is their options at the 5, they've got some options, but they have a high level of unknown between inexperience and then that freshman class. So will we see Uday Jr. or Ejiofor come into the program and deliver at a high level? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think anybody knows the answer to that question. What they do at the 5 is the biggest storyline with Kansas. If they figure that out, and if Jalen Wilson is the best player in the conference, then maybe Rob is right and they'll win the league. But I side with Baylor. I thought the injury bug caught up to them. I like what they've got back in Cryer, Flagler. And then if Shamwa Chachua comes back healthy later in the season, watch out.
I would not expect JTT to be much of anything this season. I will say this: Caleb Lohner at Baylor is going to be the guy that kind of steps in and plays the. I don't really want to say like the Mark Vital role, because I don't think that he can necessarily do what Mark Vital does, but like the change of pace guy at the 5 for Lothamba, because when they tried to make him like a wing at BYU, and he lost a bunch of weight, so they put some muscle back on him at Baylor, and they're going to use him as kind of like because he could pass the ball, he could shoot a little bit, create some stuff for him. I will say this about Kansas lineups where you have DeJuan Harris, Kevin McCullough, Grady Dick, Jalen Wilson, and KJ Adams out there are, I think, going to be a thing, and something that could be very, very intriguing to watch. I'm really excited to see what Bill Self can throw out there with these like 5 out small ball switchable lineups. All right, the most underrated team in the conference. We're going to talk about. We'll get to Texas and Texas Tech in a second, but I want to talk about the most underrated team. T.O., floor is yours. You and I agree on this one. We stand in the same place. Jerome Tang, Kansas State Wildcats. Tell me why. Tell me why they could be a tournament team.
There's a kid coming out of junior college that nobody knows about. His name is Naquan Tomlin, and he's about 6'10", 6'11", Fanta. And if you turn on his film from his junior college, he was JUCO Giannis, and it is hilarious to watch. He's from New York City, correct? And he goes down. He never played high school basketball, only fooled around with his friends, went down to a JUCO, and then grew to 6'10" and plays like a guard. This kid has all the ability in the world. He's one of the best, if not the highest upside draft prospect in the conference.
Wow.
That's saying a lot.
Oh my gosh.
People don't know about him yet. I talked to a couple of NBA scouts that they didn't know about him. I was like, guys, you have to go down and watch this. And then you can call Kansas State's staff, which Rob has done. I have not done that, which Rob has done. And they rave about the kid. By far their most talented player, including Keontae Johnson.
Yeah. Tang is very, very, very high on this dude.
He is a bad
very,
boy.
Very high on this dude.
Is it going to turn into production in the Big 12? A little bit slower.
He's never played at this level, right?
Yeah.
We've never seen him do it. So when T.O. comes out here and says this, it's because he has the potential to be able to do that. And if you watch the film and you watch the tape, and he's a layup line scout fan. He's one of these guys where if you just go watch him shoot layups, you're like, human beings aren't supposed to be able to move like that. Now, there's a huge difference between goofing off with your friends, right? Playing JUCO ball at the level that he played it and walking into the big fucking 12. Okay. There's a big, big, big difference. But if it all comes together for him, and it probably won't until I would guess around the start of conference play, like you're going to have to give it some time. He's going to be one of these guys that can kind of take off at the end of the season.
But a couple of things he does do. He has excellent timing blocking shots.
Mm-hmm.
Translates. He was an excellent JUCO rebounder. that translates. He's 6'10", 210. Like, he's going to be able to match up. I honestly think if he's focused in on that end, and I don't know the kid personally because I never saw him in high school. Nobody did. Never saw. I'm basing this all off film. His athleticism is going to let him guard 1 through 5 in college. 1 through 5. And I say that without hesitation. He is a special type of athlete. He moves so well with the ball. He's got a little shake. Jump shot is a little wonky, but you would expect that from somebody who never even played high school ball, right? But like, the tools are there. And it's almost like he doesn't know any better because he hasn't developed any bad habits per se, because he never really played in a system thing. He's always just goofed around. And then it's just turned into some kind of explosion. Like, it's unbelievable to watch him on film.
I will say this. I totally agree with you. I think that Kansas State's the most underrated team in the league. Marquise Noel is an all Big 12 guy that is coming back, and he's going to be really, really good. They got Desi Sills coming in, who was at Arkansas State. He was at Arkansas.
He was at Central Arkansas. But he was at Arkansas prior to that.
Yeah, he was at Arkansas. He was a former top 50 recruit. Like, he's a good player. Keontae Johnson, Naquan Tomlin. They got the David Guesson kid coming in from
Virginia Tech.
Yeah, Virginia Tech, who should be able to get some more playing time. They got a kid coming in from the Wake Forest transfer, Masood. They got some good pieces, and we have them for the Almanac picked the last in the Big 12. And I refuse to believe that this team is going to finish last in the Big 12. I have that much faith.
I got Oklahoma last.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I think
they could be last.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. All right, Phantom, most underrated team.
Iowa State. I think that they had a solid offseason. Bringing in Osani from St. Bonaventure, that's a guy that he's a dude. Like, he isn't. Why are you laughing at me?
It's Oshunayi. They call him Shun.
I always forget his name.
It's a hard name to say, man.
Yeah, that's not an easy one.
Not all of us can be blessed with a last name like Fanta, which is easy to remember and easy to pronounce.
Or right. Ali. Or
I should remember that because I interviewed Oshun last year, but I just forgot is how you pronounce his name. Hassan Ward, Demarion Watson as well. They made some nice transfer additions. Defensively, we know that Otts is gonna have them in the right places. Now, last year, we know that offense was hard to come by for this team. They do bring back a couple of key pieces. I think that one of the biggest pieces for them is Caleb Grill, because his three-point shooting seemed to open things up for them offensively. Not just Grill, but Gabe Kalsher is a guy that's going to be important for what they do and could be a guy that takes another step up this year. And if he and Grill are able to provide, Oshun is a guy that protects the rim, makes great defensive plays. Like, he was in a St. Bonaventure uniform last year, but he's ready. To me, I'm not as concerned about him making the transition to the Big 12. I think it'll be a transition, but I think he's physical enough to play at a high level. For Iowa State, it's just, are they making enough perimeter shots, and do they have enough effectiveness on the offensive end of the floor?
Who the hell's going to score? That's the question. Yeah, exactly right, Fanta. Sorry, I agree with
for sure. Who the hell's going to score? But I really like the way that they went about business last year. Even though they had a taste of reality in the Big 12, they still show what they're capable of in the NCAA tournament and made it to the second weekend. So to me, I think a lot of people are discounting them again this year. I think many people think, yeah, they're probably an NIT team. I could see them sliding into the NCAA tournament because I think TJ Otzelberger will find enough offense, and it's not necessarily going to be pretty, but I think the Cyclones will be gritty enough to get their way onto the big dance floor.
My biggest concern is just the point guard play there. Losing Jeremiah Williams, I think, is a big blow. But
and he was supposed to replace Tyrese Hunter. So losing him for the season was huge. Yeah, and he's a good player. Temple translate, good player.
Jerron Holmes, really good player. Oshuni, really good player. They have role players around them. If Gabe Kalsher can find a way to get back to what he was as a freshman at Minnesota, I see what you're saying, Fanta, and I don't disagree. It's just that injury to Jeremiah Williams was a killer. Let's do this. I want to walk through what we think proper expectations for each of these teams are, and I do want to talk about Texas and Texas Tech in this spot. So Kansas and Baylor, we all agree, Big 12 title threats, national title threats, have a very real chance to get back to the Final Four. Any disagreement there?
No disagreement.
Yep. I think second weekend is more realistic for Kansas. Elite Eight. I don't know that they have the firepower like they did last year.
Yeah, they probably don't. But like we're all in agreement. They're very, very good. Yes, two of the best teams in the conference, right? Two of the best teams in the country. All right. Texas, TCU, Texas Tech. They're all teams that can get to the second weekend. We talked about TCU. I don't think we need to kind of rehash that. They should be a Sweet 16 this year. Let's talk about Texas first. TO. This is a team. What I think is most fascinating about them is they have some of these guys, I want to call them post-hype transfers, right? Where everyone was all over Marcus Carr and all over Dylan Disu and all over Christian Bishop and all over Timmy Allen when they were coming in last season. Marcus Carr and Timmy Allen kind of had somewhat disappointing years, even though they did get some all Big 12 honors. Dylan Disu was banged up. Christian Bishop didn't really come on until the end of last season. So where do you stand on this Texas team?
I have them fifth. I have them behind Texas Tech and TCU. The only thing is what their problems were last year. Are they going to be the same problems? Like Timmy Allen, I thought was excellent in spurts. And whenever he has room to operate, he's really good because then he can draw that second defender and pass. And they did some really creative things to make him effective, even though he can't shoot it. I think a lot of this season hinges on whether or not he's going to be able to hit some shots from the perimeter. He was a pretty good mid-range guy last year. He needs to be better to extend out some defenses, but he provides a lot of stuff for you. I really like the Dylan Mitchell kid, but he's more of a defensive lightning rod and athlete. Is he an offensive threat from the perimeter? Probably not. So who's going to score? I heard Tyrese Hunter. I talked to somebody last week that was at Texas's practices, said he's really improved from the perimeter. We'll see how that goes. He needs to be a better shooter. I like their pieces as far as defensively. I like their pieces. Are they going to be able to score, or is it going to be a lot of the same things from Texas this year? And Marcus Carr has been highly effective on bad. He's a good numbers, bad team guy so far. Is he going to be able to turn a lot of those good numbers into wins is a big concern of mine.
Fanta?
Well, when I look at Texas, I think that Marcus Carr is the single most important piece because when they brought him over, they anticipated some of those numbers to be a high percentage of what they were in Minnesota. When they first made that acquisition, the immediate reaction was Texas just got a guard that on his best days is an all-American type of talent. Now it's time for Marcus Carr to start really performing like that this season. And you have help. The keys to the car are in this backcourt's hands. They've got to have Tyrese Hunter and Marcus Carr deliver. Look, this is a team that's going to defend like hell. They're going to defend really, really well. They're going to make life difficult for you. And I'm a fan of what Timmy Allen and Dylan Mitchell can do for this team. And I think that Dylan Mitchell, what Dylan Mitchell ends up being could totally change where Texas ends up. Chris Beard has raved about him. He said he's mature beyond his years. He said he's the perfect fit for the program. I'm excited. I'm as excited to watch Dylan Mitchell on a team as anybody early in the season because I just want to see how he meshes in this equation. Christian Bishop to me at the 5, if that's your starting 5, which certain lineup projections have that. Like, you're exactly right, Rob. It took Bishop a lot of time to figure out what he was doing last year. And I wondered, like, if Texas was the best fit for Bishop. I didn't think that he necessarily fit their system in a great way. So, like, I'm not as bullish on Texas's front court. I think that their backcourt is where their season's going to lie. And if that backcourt can mesh, that's the difference between Texas being a top 12 team in the country and a team that could make the Elite Eight. And if they're just a first-round exit in the NCAA tournament.
They need Tyrese Hunter and Marcus Carr to be one of the best backcourt. They're not going to be the best backcourt in the conference because Baylor's is far and away better than anybody else. But they need to be one of the best backcourts in that conference. They got to be on the same on par with Mike Miles and Damian Baugh if they're going to win. And I think that that's in the realm of possibility if Marcus Carr can be a numbers on a winning team guy, and if Tyrese Hunter can take a step forward when it comes to his shooting ability. To me, and we'll get into this later, the single biggest X factor on that roster and in the Big 12 might be Dylan Disu. I'll talk about that in a second. All right. I do want to talk a little bit about Texas Tech. They are rebuilding that roster again. They're going to have basically 9 new faces in their rotation, right? The only guy coming back is Kevin O'Banner, who had a good season, not a great season. They're going to look different this year because instead of having 17 guys that are 6'6" and athletic, we're going to have a couple of big bodies inside. And Fardaws, when he gets back from his foot injury, and Daniel Batcho, we're going to have some smaller guards. Devion Harmon specifically coming in. He was a starter at Oklahoma, then a starter at Oregon, and now he is back to be a starter at Texas Tech. Name to keep an eye on: Jalen Tyson, the transfer from Texas. He's been as impressive as anybody in practice. The staff is raving about him. They've been raving about him. He's a guy that's going to have, I think, a bigger impact than people realize.
He was in a tough spot at Texas, though, man. Like, he was the only freshman on that entire team, and that was just a bad fit. I mean, you got to bring freshmen in with freshmen. It's tough to be the only one, I think.
Yeah, sure. But now he is going to be, he's a redshirt. What is he? A redshirt, whatever, a sophomore at Texas Tech. I expect him to have a big season. They got Kerwin Walton, a shooter, coming in. So it's going to look a little bit different this year, right? I don't think that they're going to be winning games necessarily 49-48. I think you're going to have a little bit more offensive firepower, but it's Mark Adams, and you know they're going to play hard. T.O., you got 30 seconds. What do you think of the Red Raiders?
I really like the Devion Harmon. He doesn't fit their traditional mold of a bigger guard that can switch and things like that, but his tenacity and defensive ability do on the basketball. He's big and strong guy. He's improved every single year from 3. I thought he was a quality addition. I think Kerwin Walton is better than what he was allowed to show at Carolina. His ability to knock down shots, I think he shot like in the high 40s his freshman season. Sophomore year comes around, falls out of the good graces of Hubert Davis. But if you go back and look at his film, he's creating off the bounce a lot more than I initially thought. Like, he can really make things happen with the basketball. That has to happen in the Big 12 because defenses are so good. What ends up happening is everything breaks down offensively. You got to create something. They have 2 guys that can do that before Fardaws comes back. I think Devion Harmon and Kerwin Walton can both do that. And then you get a bonus with Jalen Tyson.
Yep. All right. So Oklahoma State, Kansas State, West Virginia, Oklahoma, and I'm missing somebody on this list. But do you see anyone else out of that group making it?
I don't think you're missing anybody. I think you got everybody.
No, you got 10 teams. Everyone.
Yeah. Is there anyone else out of that group that you could see make the tournament? I would make the argument Kansas State and West Virginia and Oklahoma State all have the tournament is all within the realm of possibility with them.
I think Oklahoma State to me is going to find their way into the tournament because I think they've got the right kind of balance. And I think that if Avery Anderson and Bryce Thompson can be the tandem that drives that bus, all right, I'm not getting bit by the pronunciation. Is it Cisse?
Yes. Musa Cisse.
You know that Musa Cisse is going to protect the rim.
Yes.
So you've got an elite rim protector. If they have, it's a little bit similar to Texas. They're kind of like Texas Light with their backcourt. They're going to need Avery Anderson, Bryce Thompson to drive this bus. 2 upperclassmen guys, 2 guys who averaged in double figures a year ago. And if they can find enough complementary scoring, and if they could shoot the basketball, Oklahoma State season. Oklahoma State season hinges on perimeter shooting. If they get it, they're going to be in the tournament. Mike Boyden, to me, I think this is a redemption year. I think it could be a good story in college hoops. The Pokes are going to dance this year. There's my prediction. I think Oklahoma State will get there.
Yeah, I agree. They made 3 key additions. Only 2 of them are going to be eligible. John Michael Wright coming in from High Point. He can shoot it. Lead guard. Caleb Asbury, more of an off guard, can shoot it as well. Not having Russell Harrison, who was ruled that he already used all of his years of eligibility, hurts because he's 6'7" and athletic and can.
I love that. Like, no, he can't play. He's 30.
Yeah, he can't play. This would be his 7th year of college basketball. So, I think Oklahoma State can make it. West Virginia, we'll get to them later because I think that they can make it as well. All right, player of the year in the conference. I have Jalen Wilson heading in. What do you guys have?
Oh boy, I said this with TCU. I'm going to go with Mike Miles. I understand that's an easy pick as well, but it's very tempting to take Wilson because I think if he does get the perimeter shot going, he's an NBA player the testing the waters. The reason why he's back at Kansas is because the guy had catch and shoot opportunities. I was covering him at the G League camp that they had along with the combine. They were trying to set him up for threes, guys, and he was finding a lot of iron in Chicago. It wasn't going well. So he's back at Kansas because he's got to get that perimeter game right. Mike Miles is such a high-level talent, and if you put him in a Kansas or Baylor uniform, I think we're talking about him even more. I think part of the reason why the nation doesn't fully understand just how good of a guard he is because he wears a TCU uniform. Mm-hmm. Notice I didn't put Texas into the brand conversation on this argument. I'm going to go with Mike Miles. I think he will lead TCU to a promised land that the program has not seen.
T.O.?
I think it's crazy to even think this or assume this, but Keontae George could be a freshman and win it.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
He is really, really talented. He's got that dog in him. He's dog.
And he's perfect for what Scott Drew wants out of a guard, right?
That's right.
He could score it off the bounce. He could come off of down screens. He can play off the ball. If you want to put him into ball screens, let him go rock. He can do it. He can pass it a little bit too. Like he's everything that you want out of a guard. That team is going to be so with a healthy Adam Flagler, a healthy LJ Cryer, and Keontae George. Like those three, I don't know. How do you stop that? How do you guard them?
Yeah, and he played so well this summer, and he raises to the level of competition, which. He's a pretty unique freshman.
Yeah. All right. So if we're going to talk about first team all conference, I think that you have to take Keontae, you have to take Mike Miles, you have to take Jalen Wilson. I would also have Adam Flagler and Timmy Allen from Texas on my first team. I don't know if you guys have any disagreements there, but throw DeJuan Harris, LJ Cryer, Avery Anderson, Kevin O'Banner, and Musa Cisse on my second team. I don't know if you guys have anything different, but that's just what we did at the Almanac. I did the Almanac Big 12 preview. So
I think you're right on. I mean, I don't think I would change a thing about that because you have Allen on the first team. You have to put him on there with his productivity down the stretch in the season. So that's why, like, I know we talked about him and said there were spurts at times, but to me, he's on the first team. And I think the wild card of the whole situation could be if Dylan Mitchell pans out to the degree Chris Beard hopes he pans out.
Well, let's hold on. I'm going to get into Johnson. So to me, there's two X factors in the league, right? One of them is the health of Keontae Johnson and Naquan Tomlin. We kind of talked about that. The other one is Dylan Disu, who, when he transferred out of Vanderbilt, he was coming off of a season where he averaged 15.5 points, 9.2 boards, and shot 37% from three on a team that I think they won like 6 games in the SEC, but he had big games against Kentucky. He had big games against some of these other power programs in the SEC. And he was banged up in the offseason. He didn't have an offseason. Like Chris Beard, I don't know if he said it to you when you talked to him, Fanta, but one of the things that he said over and over and over again is he started last season in the training room, right? He didn't have an offseason. He didn't have a chance to work. He didn't have a chance to improve. He was on a minutes restriction. He was on a pitch count. Like he couldn't be who he was for until February. And once you got to February, it's very hard to change the rotation. So they are expecting big things out of him. And if he gets back to being that guy that was like a top 3 transfer in the portal heading into the 2021-22 season, then I think that kind of changes things, right? Especially if Marcus Carr and Tyrese, there's a lot of if this happens, then this happens on this Texas team. But there is very much a potential outcome where Marcus Carr finds his true identity. Dylan Disu makes that step up. Tyrese Hunter starts knocking down shots. Timmy Mitchell is who he is. Dylan Mitchell is the guy or Timmy Allen is who he is.
Yeah.
Dylan Mitchell comes off the bench and is an elite defender, and Christian Bishop is a lob threat and a guy that can space the floor a little bit. And all of a sudden, we're looking at Texas like, oh shit, that's a top 10 team. So to me, those are the X factors in that conference.
I looked at your all conference, and I agree with everything you put. I do think that if Kansas is going to win this league, that by season's end, he's not on the preseason all conference teams, but by season's end, Kevin McCullough will be an all league selection because that's what it would take for Kansas to be at the top of the conference. Because that's what I also think of McCullough and how impactful he is on a great team.
Yep. All right. So bold predictions. Fanta, we're going to you first. Then we'll try T.O. see if he has any like real bold predictions. Something better than Minnesota making the NIT. Fanta, what's your bold prediction in the Big 12? Here, let me go first.
No, I know. I was thinking about it. Baylor's going to win the national championship.
Ooh, I like it. Wow. I like it. I don't hate it.
The longer I look at it, the more I think it. And when I look at how tough they are, when I look at Cryer and Flagler, the way that Cryer came on last year, it was incredible to watch. And all, like when I hear T.O. then say Keontae George could be the player of the year. So you're telling me you've got
He
Cryer.
was preseason player of the year in the SEC before he got hurt. And he was well on his way to doing it before the health scare. But so talented dude.
Keontae George at Baylor, not Keontae Johnson at Kansas State.
Yeah, I'm talking.
Come on, T.O.
Sorry, George Johnson.
Look, what are we doing here?
I got in at 1.
What are we doing here, Fanta? Unbelievable.
I got in at 1.
I
spent the day with you guys yesterday. You guys went home, got to sleep real good. I'm going to cry a little bit about the Guardians. Next thing I know, I had to fly. I got stuck at LaGuardia. It took entirely too long to get out the wrong way.
Well, look, that's your own damn fault for flying into LaGuardia, okay? T.O., give me a bold prediction.
Give me a bold prediction. Keontae Johnson makes first team. I think he comes back. I think he comes back and has a great season. He has been ready to go for bordering on year and a half now. He's been Coach Key for all of last season. He finally gets his opportunity. Jerome Tang has dealt with players that have had health scares of the same sort before, so he somewhat knows how to deal with it. Obviously,
to elaborate on that, I talked with him at length about that in the offseason. And the first time that he had to deal with it, and for any coach that has to deal with it, like if you've seen a player collapse from a heart issue, like that can scare you. And then when you have that player come back and this guy that you're supposed to take care of, there's a level of nervousness asking someone to push themselves, because when you're playing this level of college basketball and you're a coach, you're asking players to push themselves beyond what they think they can accomplish and what they think they can do. And when you do that with someone where you've seen them fall out and you know that they have a heart issue, it can be hard to do that. And Jerome Tang has dealt with that numerous times over the years, whether it was King McClure, Jared Butler. I don't know if we're supposed to talk about that. It was Isaiah Austin dealt with something when he was there. They've had experience with this, and I think that really can impact the way that you can coach a player like that, and you can understand that you can push them a little bit and where the breaking point is. So that matters. Here's my bold prediction: both Kansas State and West Virginia make it into the NCAA tournament. We haven't had much time to talk about West Virginia, but one of the things that Bob Huggins really, really emphasized to me was that he didn't have his guys. He didn't have guys that wanted to compete. He didn't have guys that wanted to win on his roster last year. I think he retooled his lineup with guys that fit what he wants, whether it's Eric Stevenson coming in from South Carolina, whether it's Joe Toussaint transferring in from
Iowa.
Iowa. There's pieces on this roster that better fit what a Bob Huggins basketball team is. And I think what we're going to see is them take a return to being, I don't want to say quite press Virginia, but being more of a team where you're not just relying on a bunch of guys throwing up a bunch of threes. They don't want to play any defense. We're going to see West Virginia return. Bob Huggins is too good not to find a way to make it work with a bunch of guys. Like that's just.
Trey Mitchell is there. Emmett Matthews Jr. comes back from Washington. I don't know where the scoring comes from. And
Kadrian Johnson, right?
Yep. I'm telling you,
not huge on West Virginia.
Joe Toussaint, the impact that he's going to have, the ability that he can have, get out and transition and just kind of use his speed and his quickness at the point guard spot is something that I think is going to work a lot better for West Virginia than did for Iowa. But listen, guys, this
has
been
average
fun.
3 points a game last year.
Hey, who'd he play for though? It's a good transfer. I always say, who are you coached by? He's.
I always say that. He's
coached up by Fran McCaffrey.
Yeah, wow. To just
average 3 points.
Keep it in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
All right. I'm the one that tried to tell you about Trey Alexander, and you said, "Nah, he's a bum."
I didn't say that.
Wow.
That's complete fib.
Fibbing.
All right. Good luck with the cat.
This has been the DTF podcast. I have to take my cat to the vet for a lot of different reasons. My cat.
You look like a cat person.
I'm not a cat person. I'm a dog person, but we have I'm also in the house that we bought. I am apparently a mouse person in our basement. So having a cat clean up that problem for us has been
There you go.
It's been nice. There you go. She's earned her keep around here, and I will never say anything bad about her. Although having the present,
evil, man.
I don't know if you ever had a cat before, but what they do when they catch something is they'll catch it, they'll kill it, and then they'll leave it as a present for you. So when you come down in the morning at 6:30 and you're going to get your coffee, and you go and you almost step on a dead mouse laying in the middle of your kitchen floor that your cat has left you as a present because she loves you so much, that can be a little disconcerting, fellas.
Well, that's a good thing, because that's what Baylor's going to do in the rest of the Big 12 this year.
There you go. All right. For John Fanta, for Terrence Oglesby, make sure you go buy some merch in the store below. Subscribe to the Daily in the link below. Buy the Almanac if you haven't bought it yet. We're coming to you next week. We have some more announcements coming on the Field of 68 and After Dark. More news on that coming very soon as well. Fellas, it's been a pleasure.
We're dropping our merch. We got to start calling Underwood Daddy Brad. But I'm a big pod guy.
Breaking news. The Field of 68 has an online store, and it's your one-stop shop for the latest and greatest merch in college basketball and college football. You can find shirts to support your favorite team, make fun of your rival team, or boast Field of 68 catchphrases like Daddy Brad, Cussin' and Discussin', and the Star Heels. Go to www.fieldof68.shop today and enter promo code TOUCHDOWN for 20% off at checkout.